Live everywhere.
Daily Co's Radio on netrootsradio.com presents
David Walton. Kagro in the Morning Show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Thursday, June 29th, 2017. Time to check in once again and start up a new show and see if we can figure out what's going on in the world via Twitter. That's the only way I accept news these days. Lots going on this morning, of course. Even outside of Twitter, Greg Dworkin will be with us on that wacky 3-day schedule. Rather than the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we do Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday's off. It's a summer thing. It's not really. I don't know how long it's going to go, but we're glad to have him with us today. We had a great visit yesterday and with Joan McCarter, and as we pointed out, the Medicaid repeal bill, masquerading as a health care bill in the Senate, stalled. The vote postponed until after the July 4th recess, which is exactly what we were looking for. Give us one more shot at reaching our senators and, Greg reminded you, governors, and really anybody in elected office anywhere at any level, because it all falls to the states to implement anyway. Of course, the front line of the battle on the federal level. Find them if you can. Find them if you can at the July 4th parades. They don't normally want to skip those things. They'll be hiding this time, though. Give them an earful, and if you can't find them, give whoever you find an earful. This is not the time to let up. The whole strategy of fighting now was to get them to delay through the July 4th recess so that you could double your efforts. I want to remind you that that's the case. Anyway, we'll probably be focusing on a number of other things as well today, though Greg always likes to keep one foot in the healthcare battle, and that's good. He's a rock for us in that sense, and otherwise I would wander off into other topics. Daily Co's Radio is live now, as we were reminded by Bill in Portland, Maine, who keeps tabs on such things. You're like the Mark Knoller of the show, noting every time it comes on. Thank you very much. You should count it. He loves numbers, Mark Knoller does. Anyway, Daily Co's Radio is live now. Kagro X, that's me, David Waldman, preps for July 4th. I love to find out what I'm going to do on every show this way. By spending 2 hours tap dancing with sparklers. That's an undervalued talent, and we don't see it very often. Not enough variety shows. We do have lots of performance-based reality shows. The America's Got Talent. When was the last time you saw someone tap dancing with sparklers? It's very old school. Good thought, Bill. We'll have to try and work on that and brush it up. Donald Trump is tweet storming about something this morning, and it seems like it might even be non-political. He left off last night. I guess it looks like it was around 10 o'clock last night, and he's picked up this morning in the last hour. Let's see. New sugar deal negotiated with Mexico is a very good one for both Mexico and the U.S. That's nice. Had no deal for many years, which hurt the U.S. badly, bigly and badly. But then he switches gears. It's a good thought. Sugar, right? I heard poorly rated Morning Joe Scarborough, speaks badly of me. Don't watch anymore. Then how come low IQ crazy Mika, along with Psycho Joe, came to Mar-a-Lago 3 nights in a row around New Year's Eve and insisted on joining me? She was bleeding badly from a facelift. I said no. Said no what? They insisted on joining them for 3... What does she say no to? What does he say no to? That's a weird thing. I mean, they did, I think, go to Mar-a-Lago around New Year's Eve, and then he invited them to the White House. There was a whole story about him going to lunch. This is how we found out that he likes 2 scoops of... No, it isn't. That's right. That was the interview with the Washington Post or New York Times, who he also hates and won't talk to anymore. And he brought them in for ice cream. That's how we found out he gets 2 scoops. They go, well, this was the story about the special sauce on the chicken that only he got. That's right. And that he had offered to officiate their wedding. Things have gone sour pretty quickly with these guys. I mean, New Year's Eve, it's June. It's less than, well, I guess it's a little bit more now, or I guess it's coming to around 6 months. We're at the end of June. 6 months from come on over, but and he says he said no, which he didn't. How do you even say that? How come low IQ crazy Mika, along with Psycho Joe, came to Mar-a-Lago 3 nights in a row? Then he says they were there, right? Insisted on joining me. bleeding badly from a facelift. I said, no, they can't join him. Is that right? Is that they just go and sit around at Mar-a-Lago for 3 days while he's stewed elsewhere? I can't believe she's bleeding badly from a facelift. You can't bring her over here. This is disgusting. It's horrible. His blood, she's bleeding out of her, whatever. That was what the problem was. He hates blood. The sight of blood, I guess, is a big deal for Donald J. Trump. I don't know what he's going on about. I don't know if he's still going on it. But he's nuts and needs to be removed from the presidency. This is not what a president ought to be doing at 9 o'clock in the morning or ever. Okay. Let's see. Other morning Twitter chatter. I mean, why not? We'll just focus on that. Exclusively what I saw this morning. Armando sent on to me, as a matter of fact, the comments of Sopan Deb, who, where did he used to write? I forget where he used to work. He's now a culture writer for the New York Times. And he says in the past he did a lot of the Trump coverage during the campaign. Oh my goodness, for everybody. CBS, NBC, for CBS. And he has also got, I guess, previous experience in other things for NBC, MLB, Major League Baseball, or am I thinking of something else? Or is it supposed to be AJAM, Al Jazeera America? Yeah, Boston Globe. Stand-up comic. NBA dude, so maybe Major League Baseball. And a pianist. That is to say, those of you who, still waking up in the morning, a piano player. That's not what I said. Okay. Anyway, he had an interesting comment this morning on a gun fail story that I think maybe a lot of you have heard by now. It's sort of spread into the mainstream media, kind of oddly giving these kids who pulled this stupid stunt the fame, well, posthumous fame for one of them that they were craving. They had a YouTube channel, two young folks, a couple, I think 19 and 22 years old. The 22-year-old man was killed in this stunt. They decided to do they had a YouTube channel full of their crazy, wacky stunts, and this time the crazy, wacky stunt was, I'll hold a book to my chest, and you shoot me through the book, and the book will stop the bullet, and we'll have a fantastic YouTube video. Sopan saying, I've been in digital media for 12 years, and this is one of the nuttiest stories I've ever read. I can't deny that it's perhaps one of the nuttiest stories he ever read, but I have seen it before. If you've been watching Gunfail, I've seen books shot. I've seen half a dozen people shot testing bulletproof vests. I've seen people shot thinking they're testing bulletproof vests, but in fact testing Vietnam-era flak jackets, which were never bulletproof to begin with, but they are vests, and they do a lot of their best work around bullets. So people thought that they would work. I've seen all sorts of things. People shot on YouTube. People shot live streaming, Skyping, etc. Not always with something that they thought would protect them from the gun, but always doing something stupid. And this was particularly dumb. I think he convinced her that it would work. He showed her another book that he had shot at some time in the past, but it's unclear whether the book was the same book or of the same thickness, or whether he had used a different gun, or what distance he had shot it from. These are all factors you would want to take into consideration if you wanted to risk death by being shot, which you shouldn't want to do. And then, of course, they selected, this seemed to me unwise. First of all, they decided that she would shoot the book. It's just a coincidence that the bullet went through the book and into him from about a foot away. Not a lot of guns I would trust with that. Probably my last choice, if you were to hold up a book in front of you and it was up to me and I didn't want to kill you, my last choice would have been the choice they made, the .50 caliber Desert Eagle pistol. Probably one of the more powerful handguns, sometimes advertised as the most powerful handgun on the market. .50 caliber is going to be capable of a lot of penetration in this situation, enough this time to go straight through the book and into the chest of the person holding it. And he could have held it to his leg, by the way. I mean, I guess it's not as exciting a video, but if you're living for thrills, briefly, that's, I guess, not going to cut it in the wacky world of YouTubing. Anyway, she is now left with their 3-year-old and the young, as yet unborn son, due in a couple of months. So she's got a world of hurt ahead of her. But she wants everybody to know that it was his idea. He died doing what he loved, I guess. I don't know what he thought what he was going to get out of that one, but he's famous now, and everyone's talking about that. Sopan Deb, great reporter. I mean, he's seen wackier things. I know it. He talked to Trump. He followed Trump. All those stories are wackier, but man, there's no end of it in Gunfail. I mean, it's a self-selecting group. Consider where you're starting, I guess. All right. Well, speaking of considering where we're starting, let's start the day with real news. Greg Dworkin is here to do that, and this is one of those days where we'll get back on track. It's a fantastic thing. Thanks, Greg. Good morning. How you doing?
Good morning. How are you?
I'm a little distracted. When people do dumb stuff like this, sometimes it derails me for a bit.
Oh, well, I don't want you to be distracted from the distraction here.
Well, distract me with
I think that was
Nika.
Monday's show.
Yeah, right. Oh, yes, right. One of the distractions is on a different track now. You're not supposed to forget it. You still can't be distracted from healthcare. That was the chief message of this morning.
Healthcare. Let's talk healthcare.
Okay.
So
great.
First, at the very top of the list that I sent you, there's this little flurry of tweets from Emily C. Singer referencing David M. Drucker.
Ooh.
It starts like this. At this point, Republicans might consider repealing Obamacare and replacing it with the Affordable Care Act.
Yeah.
And Emily says, that's from David Drucker, Emily says, that's why replacing Obamacare was always going to be near impossible for the GOP. Obamacare is the free market health care reform.
Yeah.
So you can't replace it with a health care reform because it is the health care reform that's from the free market.
Yep.
And she says, I had a convo with a GOP Hill aide the day after the election about this. It's all playing out. There was never an alternative plan, which I think is an important point to emphasize.
Yeah, and I think absolutely correct. And I think my recollection is that immediately after the election, we all sort of joked that all they would do would be to change the name of the current law to Trump Care and leave it at that. And it's about the same outcome.
It's interesting. There's a lot of different angles on this, and we'll try to get some. Here's one I don't have on the list that I came across that I thought was pretty good. It's from Ezra Klein. He says, conservatives believe Medicaid is worthless, so slashing it is harmless. And they're wrong.
What?
They are justifying savage Medicaid cuts by denying its benefits. And he goes through exactly where that is. Mentions Avik Roy, who's the chief defender of the Senate health bill, who helped write it. He doesn't tell you that when he writes all his columns about how wonderful it is.
Why would he do that?
Imagine you're worried Medicaid doesn't do enough to improve the health outcomes of the poorest people in America. Perhaps you'd improve Medicaid, give them money to purchase good private insurance, maybe plow money into a job guarantee or a direct cash transfer. What you wouldn't do is take the money you're spending on their health care and redistribute it to the rich.
Yeah.
So he goes through the body of evidence that says that Medicaid, for example, actually helps people.
Yeah.
And the evidence is pretty good. I mean, it doesn't do direct things like lower your blood pressure or things of that sort, because the study that mostly looks at this was in Oregon. What happened in Oregon is they had a lottery because they didn't have enough money for everybody. So if you were poor, you went on Medicaid or you didn't based on the lottery, which was then used to divide people into two separate groups. And you can then study what happened to the people who got healthcare compared to what didn't get healthcare because they were more or less similar. And that's one of those experiments that you can't reproduce, but it happens that that's what happened. It was only a 2-year study, though. And so what happened? If you looked at it here, this created two similar groups. The study only lasted 2 years, only included 10,000 people. What it found was that Medicaid protected enrollees from catastrophic health costs, boosted the likelihood of people reporting they were in good, very good, or excellent health by 25%. And that's a big indicator, because if you say you're in very poor health, you have a much higher chance of dying. Cut depressive symptoms by about 30% and increased both diabetes diagnoses and treatment. It didn't show an improvement in blood sugar, blood pressure, or cholesterol levels after 2 years, which I have to say as a doc is not all that surprising, because it generally takes a very long time working with patients. I do it with asthma, to convince them to take their medicine the way we tell them, overcome the barriers about purchasing said medicine because it's often very expensive. And it just takes a very long time to see these kinds of results. So this, in that sense, was a small study for a short period of time. They didn't see it. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen. But the other things they did measure in terms of overall health was a big deal. Now, that being said, there's plenty of evidence, therefore, that having insurance helps you. And then there's a recent study suggesting that if you don't have insurance, your chance of dying is higher by various and sundry degrees.
Oh, you can't say that.
And you can debate all that stuff, but that's the policy side. So let's look at the politics side. It's awfully interesting.
All righty then.
Ronald Brownstein in The Atlantic. Why the GOP's plan for health care hit a wall.
Yeah.
The House and Senate proposals benefit those at the top explicitly at the expense of the lower middle class, and voters are beginning to notice.
Yes.
One key reason Senate Republicans have been forced to retract and retool is the legislation favors one pole of the party's modern coalitions emphatically over the other.
One of the parties is at your door.
Yeah, I know.
That's okay.
That's the mate leaving, so...
Bye.
Abby's,
Have a good day.
The teetering Senate repeal bill, like its predecessor, the House passed in May, would shower a large tax cut almost exclusively on the very high earners who compose the party's fundraising base, and to the frustration of liberal operatives and analysts,
us.
Republicans have been able to surmount similar tensions for decades, in large part by appealing to blue-collar and older whites on cultural and racial grounds.
Oh.
With his brusque agenda of racially tinged nationalism, Trump last November pushed that support to new heights. But the congressional GOP's healthcare plans are straining that connection by benefiting those at the top explicitly at the expense of the lower middle class, and marks a subtle but important change. Even previous Republican tax cut bills that channeled most of the benefits to the highest earners had some benefit trickle down to the middle class. And basically what Brownstein is arguing is that this has none.
Yeah, well, that's right.
Right? So, Aaron Blake, the GOP's healthcare bill is political kryptonite, and goes through some of the polls, but I just mentioned that title and piece and location in the Washington Post is because that's what Washington reads. Now, I sent you a little graphic here, which is like the second graphic down there, and it's outlined in red, and I'm just going to read to you. In the last 3 or 4 days, we've had like 5 polls, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 polls on, for example, NPR PBS Marist. From what you have read or heard, do you approve or disapprove of the health care plan the Senate Republicans have proposed? These are all from the 27th of June. And the approval in the last 5 polls are 17, 28, 16, 27, and 12.
Those are pretty good.
Those are pretty bad.
Pretty bad is what I meant. Yes.
That's what you said, yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly. Oh. So, I mean, the point there is that this isn't working. And in fact, Fox News found support for health bill among Republicans has dropped 24 points in the last month. 75% support for the House bill last month, 51% for the Senate bill this month. And that's also pretty bad.
Uh-huh.
Right?
Yes.
So why is, and how is all of this happening? Well, it's happening because the bill's terrible, but people are finding out about it. Here's a Politico article. Republican senators hit by calls from voters worried about Obamacare repeal bill. Republican senators' offices say they get a flood of calls from voters worried about the bill, potentially further complicating Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell's attempt to muscle legislation through. Thad Cochran, for example, was a pretty solid yes, I would think. 224 constituent calls against, 2 in favor.
Okay.
Mike Crapo, the office has gotten word that there'll be an organized protest. He's had several phone calls. There's a mix, but they rung stronger against. Chuck Grassley, what does he say here? Uptick in calls over the past few weeks, a lot of contact. Some of the calls were from out of state. That's not a good thing. Just call your own people. If you can call people that you know in that state, but out of state calls aren't going to get nowhere. And they're going to let them say, oh, well, you're not even from here. But they just go through step by step by step here, all the different people here. And, they're incredible numbers and volumes of calls, and they're all against. Now, here's one of the best pieces of the day. This is from Axios. David Nather writes, Ted Cruz surprised, quote, bunny quotes around surprised. Okay. Ted Cruz surprised Senate GOP with a pre-existing conditions plan.
That is a surprise.
It didn't help, and Ted Cruz says he wants to let insurers sell plans that don't have any protections for pre-existing conditions, as long as they also sell plans that offer those protections. Reaction to Cruz's comment, one Senate GOP aide told Caitlin Owens, another one of the reporters, that many of the Republican senators were surprised and pissed because most Republican senators had already agreed not to touch pre-existing conditions. Another aide summed it up, no matter how narrowly proposed, wading into pre-existing is not just a no, it's a hell no for the vast majority of the Senate GOP.
Huh. Yes.
Okay? That didn't stop Dylan Scott from writing a, hey, this may be how you break the logjam article for Vox this morning. Nonetheless, Vox has been very upbeat on the possibility that something gets passed. I think they're wrong, and I think that everything else I'm reading tells you why. Now, here's the part that the Axios piece that I like. No one came out of yesterday's Senate GOP meeting sounding hopeful.
Okay.
Collins says it's very difficult. I'm concerned about a number of aspects such as coverage, Medicaid cuts, impacts on premiums. Shirley Moore Capito, I'd like to see a Medicaid growth rate that matches the projected growth, or at least close to projected growth. She wants $45 billion in opioid treatment. She'll probably get that. Rob Portman, I'd rather see us stick to Medicaid growth. He wants opioid treatment. He'll probably get that. And Rand Paul says any trade-off that gives more money to moderates and more deregulation to conservatives sounds to me like a Washington deal, and I'm not going for it. So here's the interesting part. Most of the optimism is coming from the White House. Here's how an administration source summed up the mood to Jonathan Swan last night, yet another one of the reporters. And pro tip, never say this. Never say this. The quote is, I think we're going to pass this. I really think they're going to bribe off the moderates with opioid money and then actually move policy to shore up Lee and Cruz.
Yes, okay.
Don't tell people you're bribing them.
Oh.
It never
Right.
goes over well.
Well, the opioid people are distracted.
Yeah.
So.
Even John McCain, who hasn't been one of the most vocal holdouts, says he's not ready to vote for the bill. Since he's from Arizona, which expanded Medicaid, he wants to offer 3 Medicaid amendments he's worked out with Governor Doug Ducey. That has a lot to do with whether I support the bill or not. Yet another example of the senators working with the governors in those states, and how the governors are having, particularly the Republican governors, are having a lot of impact. Just look at Sandoval and Dean Heller, senator from Nevada, in terms of how that's working. Now, here's interesting things about what people know and what they don't know. Always interesting. This is from The Economist YouGov, February 2015. It's from a Vox piece. Most people think the government doesn't subsidize their health care. So we'll ask the question, do you receive a government subsidy to help you pay for health insurance? Age 18 to 29, yes. 16, no. 84. Well, maybe that's true. Who knows? 30 to 44, 18% say yes, 82% say no. 45 to 64, 16% say yes, 84% say no. But here's the interesting one. If you're over 65, and you're Medicare, and you ask people, do you think the government helps you pay for health insurance?
Okay.
Only 7% say yes.
That's
93% say no.
That's
These are
the
Medicare
backstory
people.
to those government hands off my Medicare signs.
Exactly right. And of course, these are Trump voters.
Well, I mean, if only 7%, there've got to be some other voters in there too.
93%, say, no, government's got nothing to do with it.
That's old people.
So, don't be ageist.
I'm never
here.
going to be that
Republican
crazy
senators
when I'm
grow
old.
weary of Trump's
Can't
health care illiteracy, says Steve Bannon today. Consider this anecdote from a Politico piece published last night. Rand Paul and Susan Collins are on opposite ends of the Republican Party when it comes to health care. Somehow the two senators both left this week's Obamacare repeal meetings with President Trump thinking he's on their side. Paul wants to gut as much of Obamacare as possible and recalled after his one-on-one meeting that the president realizes that moderates have gotten everything so far. The centrist Collins, on the other hand, left a large Tuesday gathering with the president, sure that he still wants to make the bill's healthcare offerings more robust, explaining he did leave me with that impression.
Okay.
Now, what Steve Bennett says, there is no reason to believe the senators are giving false accounts of their conversations with the president.
No.
On the contrary, it's very easy to believe it. What's more, Trump probably wasn't misleading them either, at least not deliberately. He very likely heard them out and said their position sounds like the sort of thing he could support, and therein lies the rub.
Yes.
The president has no idea what he's talking about.
Yes.
and doesn't want to make an effort to get up to speed.
That is correct, too.
And this is why, for the most part, they've had Pence doing the negotiations. They've tried to isolate Trump and keep him away from all of this. And that's probably why he's on Twitter every morning, tweeting about Mika and Morning Joe, as you were saying.
Yes. Mika Brzezinski, by the way, during our conversation, striking back.
Oh.
The Empire Strikes Back with a tweet of the back of the Cheerio box that I guess she's having Cheerios for breakfast, made for little hands. Had a little picture there of young kids eating the Cheerios.
Oh, isn't that cute?
Yes, and everyone knows that the little toddlers love Cheerios. I thought that they were not so much made for little hands as if you choke on them, they got holes in them.
Right.
You can breathe through them, but still, little hands. And he's got the little ones, so big score for Mika.
So Bennett says, Trump sincerely agrees with the last person he spoke to, which forms the basis for his opinions right up until somebody new enters the room.
That's exactly it.
But, Trump isn't in a position to lead, not for lack of will, but because he doesn't know anything.
Right. Where would he lead you to? Wherever you're going, I guess.
Here's an interesting angle that Dave Weigel takes here. As GOP buckles down on health care, conservative media loses interest. Now, there are groups out there who have come out against the Senate bill from the conservative side, not conservative enough kind of stuff.
Okay.
I don't have that in front of me at my fingertips. I think Club for Growth did. But, a couple of them have said, we don't like this. We know that the Koch brothers, consiglieres have said that they don't like it. But this story is GOP buckles down on healthcare, conservative media loses interest. It's one of those situations where you have healthcare on MSNBC and healthcare on CNN, and then you have Fox News covering, some tornado somewhere, and they're not even covering the issue.
Mika's facelift.
A viewer turning into Fox News saw hardly any of it. And they talk about the lack of Obama repeal coverage, unthinkable 6 months ago, reflected a general decline of conservative interest in what had united Republicans for 7 years. And conservative grassroots groups have either ignored the latest healthcare details, like Americans for Prosperity, or lobbied against the bill, like Club for Growth. So I did remember correctly. So Charlie Sykes says it's not that surprising. You look at the trajectory of conservative media, and it's never been policy-oriented. It's about whether you get the win. There's nothing for Rush Limbaugh to sex up about a bill that's neither repeal nor reform. And by the way, I would add, doesn't look like a win.
Right.
So that's another powerful piece of who pushes people to do stuff. And the push, because we talked yesterday about the way that it was rolled out, with a lot of people being mad at Mitch McConnell, the genius, because they didn't have any talking points to go on because they didn't know what the heck was in the bill. So the senators couldn't talk it up. Talk radio isn't talking it up. Conservative media isn't talking it up. Fox News isn't talking it up. And so what do? You wind up with 12% support to 17% support in the polls.
Well, okay.
Not surprising. Not surprising at all.
I hope they keep going.
Me too.
Okay.
And basically, the deal is, if they don't get a deal done by tomorrow, then it's talk to Schumer.
I guess so. I like the way that was put, that he was threatening. If you don't get this deal done, I'm threatening bipartisanship. But it's a crazy world, and I guess that maybe works. I am also astonished by the way that for a while there it seemed like Ted Cruz might find renewed life in the Senate with Donald Trump, the more hated man in Washington.
No, he took care of that with that proposal he had yesterday. Apparently, he just got everybody to hate him all over again.
He's so good at that. He's one of the best in the business at getting people to hate him, which suggests that he shouldn't be in the Senate.
Said the other day, if it weren't for Ted Cruz, Rand Paul would be the most hated senator. But,
that might be it.
But no, with Ted Cruz, that's not going to happen.
Right, buy him some isotoner gloves. That's the old commercial. Okay.
Right. Here's one, Chuck Todd, Mark Murray carry on with their politics first read in the morning. I always like that. Mark Murray, I think, is really sharp. Are Democrats really ready to negotiate on health care? This is an interesting one. Oh, okay, Democrats, say Senate Republicans, are you willing to extend a hand to find bipartisan solutions to health care? Are you ready?
No.
Well, Democrats are divided.
Okay.
But I think they get the story sort of wrong.
All right.
The Bernie Sanders, the progressive wing, the rank and file Democrats, and I think all of the congressional Democrats under Chuck Schumer agree There's no negotiating on repeal. This bill has to go down first. You have to stop saying repeal. You have to start talking about repair. You do that, you will get some people. And there are people willing to do it. Tom Carpin's willing to do it. Claire McCaskill's willing to do it. Mark Warner's willing to do it. You can always find centrists, moderates in the Democratic Party that are more than happy to fix the existing problems with the exchanges, whether they involve 3% of the population or 7% of the population, doesn't matter. People feel like their premiums are too high and the deductibles are too high. And that's because healthcare overall costs too much. And there are fixes that are available. I'll go over some of those in a minute. But the point here is that the media is already shifting to, okay, how come the Democrats are in disarray and why aren't they helping the Republicans bail out the Republicans from Republican mistakes? So when you start seeing the media shift in that way with their very predictable responses, you know that the Democrats are actually winning this argument.
Okay.
They go on to say how unpopular is the GOP healthcare effort and where Democrats could find common ground. Why are they talking about this? Because the Republicans have a fail on their hands, and they don't want to keep talking about that every minute because although they'd be happy to do that if it were Democrats, they just want to change the topic. So Republicans are failing bigly on this healthcare repeal thing that they're doing. Therefore, Democrats are in disarray because that is like incredibly predictable.
Okay.
Right? But no. As a matter of fact, it's interesting. I think it's a good strategy for Democrats not to help right now. If you're drowning, throw them an anvil. And that's fine. But interestingly, today, the Center for American Progress came out with some suggestions about what to do. I'm going to read you a short tweet storm from Topher Spiro, who's one of their healthcare analysts there. Today, the Center for American Progress is releasing legislation to stabilize insurance markets and lower premiums. The Market Stability and Premium Reduction Act can be found in the appendix here at American Progress, bipartisan legislation to lower premiums and stabilize insurance. We urge senators to chart a new course and work together on a bipartisan basis to first do no harm and second resolve uncertainty. Interesting, because do no harm comes from the American Medical Association, and today there's a Craig Garthwaite, Republican analyst, and Nicholas Bagley, Democrat, with an op-ed in the Times today saying the Republicans' uncertainty strategy and how it really destroys the ability of any company to work with the U.S. government when the U.S. government doesn't know what's going on and says 9 different things within a space of 5 minutes. So they're directly attacking that, or tackling that, I should say, with the idea to do no harm and resolve uncertainty. That uncertainty is a thing, and it's why premiums are rising, and it's due to the Republicans. So it's clear that the GOP partisan approach has little support and would inflict widespread harm on the American people. The GOP must choose one of two paths: continue to pursue repeal or work with Democrats on a bipartisan basis to stabilize the insurance markets. This is what's coming when the bill goes down. A bill that primarily guts Medicaid to finance tax cuts for the rich is not one designed to fix any problem with the insurance markets. Bipartisan legislation would be simple and easy to put together. It would consist of 4 pages of legislative text the GOP already wrote. It would easily command supermajorities, proving the majority party can govern, and restoring some faith in the Senate as an institution. And here's the thing, it would work. It would actually solve the problem. Imagine that. Our legislation would implement evidence-based policies that have been proven to work in Alaska and Maine. Both of those have Republican governors, I believe. This is not hard. Senators acting in good faith, locking themselves in a room for 2 hours can get this done. Insurance commissioners, that would be Susan Collins, actuaries, economists, the CBO, and policy experts have all recognized core elements of effective policies. By the way, I don't know if people know that. Susan Collins is an ex-insurance commissioner from Maine and actually knows this stuff backwards and forwards.
I did not know that.
And it's one of the reasons why she's been such a tough moderate when people expected her not to be. She actually knows this stuff.
Well, that is helpful in a number of ways, but especially in explaining this. That's a good point.
Number 1, guarantee continued payments to ACA subsidies that reduce enrollees' cost sharing. This would lower premiums by 19%.
Okay.
So in other words, just stop sabotaging the ACA. That in and of itself would help. Number 2, Follow the model of Alaska and Maine, subsidized costs of high-cost enrollees, proven to work in the real world, so don't pull the plug on subsidies. Number 3, reinsurance of $15 billion would lower premiums by more than 14% by lowering premiums and tax credits. It would only cost $4 billion on net. Remember that, there was the R's, the reinsurance, there was the risk corridors, all the stuff that the GOP tried to sabotage were built into the ACA to stabilize it. By pulling those out, you destabilize. Put them back in, you stabilize. Last, the legislation could entice insurance to enter markets where there's a single or no insurer, and we present options. By the way, one thing also that people don't recognize and tend to get lost about, it is always better to have more than one insurer in a market. But if you have one insurer in a market, you generally have a choice of plans.
Yes.
So, there's cheaper plans and more expensive plans that any given insurer gives you. And that's not optimal, but it's better than I only have one choice. You actually have more than one choice.
Okay.
Just a reminder. But what you want is you want to entice insurers back into the market. And some of the smaller insurers, even as the Aetnas pull out, some of the smaller insurers are going back in. For counties that were underserved as of June 1st, insurers that enter such counties could be exempted from the health insurance tax. Because that tax is part of how you pay for this.
Yeah.
These policies are common sense solutions. Here's who would testify that such policies would stabilize markets: insurance commissioners, actuaries, economists, the CBO, and policy experts.
Those are good folks for this.
The only barrier standing in the way of fixing insurance markets is the partisan rush to repeal the ACA. End of tweet storm.
Okay. That's, it's absolutely true. And I've seen mentioned a couple times in the last few days that there are absolutely elements of this bill that could have been viewed as healthcare reform. They're just buried under avalanches of stuff that has nothing whatsoever to do with it and makes it 100 times worse.
Right. And basically what you have to do is you have to stop chopping Medicaid in this way and stop giving tax breaks for the rich. The conservatives in the Republican Party would be furious about that. Mm-hmm. But it would actually do the job.
Yeah. And there were not a few senators, Republican senators, who came away from the meeting the other day saying, yeah, the optics of this, essentially, is what they were saying, is horrible. Why are we doing this? This is absolutely unnecessary to the task.
Right, but it's necessary to who the Republicans are.
And this is also something about which Donald Trump clearly had no idea. He
doesn't have any idea about anything, so it's not surprising he didn't have an idea about this either.
One of the many things about which he has no idea, which would really be the universe of things which can be held as ideas in the brains of humans. So
I'm going to finish with one last piece and then actually let you talk. This is, why should today be any different than any other day? This is E.J. Dionne, opinion writer, writing in the Washington Post. In its current iteration, the Republican Party truly seems to believe that the solution to every problem involves throwing more money at rich people.
Yes.
That's what they always say about Democrats. All you want to do is throw more money at the problem.
Although I will say,
we have a better way. We throw money at rich people.
Asterisk. I'm not sure they believe that it solves any problems. I mean,
right.
This
explains the healthcare fiasco in the Senate, and it's why President Trump and Congress have yet to address a single major problem the country faces. Which, by the way, is true. They haven't done a darn thing about anything.
What about having done the most of any president ever?
To wind up in court. Everything is secondary to the GOP's two opening legislative priorities, gutting Obamacare and passing a tax cut. And because this whole thing is supposed to come down by Friday, it's why we're spending time on healthcare. Healthcare is not a distraction from what's going on with airports and how the Trump administration decides to define Muslim ban and all the other important stuff that's happening. But this really deserves a focus, so we're doing it. And so there's steps to eliminate regulations, protecting workers, consumers, and the environment, rationalize as job creation measures, which, by the way, they don't. And EJ says it's not true that every problem has a government solution, but it's true that certain problems can be addressed only by government. One of these is helping all Americans afford a decent health insurance policy. It's this simple. To cover everybody, government has to spend a lot of money. Why? Because unless you get your coverage from an employer or have an income in excess of $75,000 a year, the expense of insurance is crushing to your household budget. Is it any wonder it's so hard for many to buy health insurance? Putting health coverage within reach requires either large-scale subsidies for private plans or direct government spending as in Medicaid and Medicare. And the Senate bill would toss 22 million people off health insurance for one basic reason. It cuts federal spending on Medicaid. And yes, it's a cut, and all the stupid conservative arguments about it's not a cut are stupid. It is, because you're putting less money into the system. And insurance subsidies by about $1 trillion and then plows most of that into tax reductions. There's no getting around it. You can't do what the GOP wants to do without hurting a lot of people. This is why pious pleas for the parties to work together are for now empty. It would be far better for Democrats and Republicans to agree on ways to improve our health system, and it's nice to hear a few GOP senators saying so. To get to the point, Republicans would have to abandon the fiction that they can slash spending on subsidies and Medicaid without anybody paying a price. They also need to accept that it would take government action to rein in healthcare inflation, for example, harder bargaining with drug companies. Republicans did not always fixate on taxes and smaller government above all else. Eisenhower was bold in building the interstate highway system. Nixon, yes, Nixon, was similarly forward-looking, creating the EPA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. Nixon actually proposed universal health coverage. This healthcare imbroglio should be the Republicans' moment of truth. Or they can drop the tax obsession and admit that delivering what most Americans want from government will make it large and complicated. A start would be acknowledging, along with every other conservative party in the world, nearly every other, that if you hope to guarantee health care for all, only some form of big government can get you there. So really, the Republican position has been, it's not our problem.
Yeah.
We are going to cut people out. They're not going to be insured. People will be hurt. We get all of that. But you have to understand it's not our problem. It's your problem. Personal responsibility. We wash our hands of it. All we care about is lowering the deficit because of blah, 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 and that's why it's so important.
Right. Which they don't really care about, and they're happy
They don't really care about, but they can't even express why it's so important.
Right. That's true.
They've never been able to do that.
That was supposed to be the plot of it, was you need to have a reason for things that you say as policy. And then they figured out, nah, you really don't.
All we have to do is say it's the deficit, and we'll hide behind that. And you don't really have to say why or how, or as the economy grows, why a certain number isn't as big compared to the economy as, let's say, it was 50 years ago. You just have to keep saying deficit, which is why Joan always calls them the deficit peacocks.
Yep. I don't know. It's worked for a long time, certainly, but it's certainly clearer than ever.
Well, that's fine, but you're taking away my health care, so let's pay attention now.
Well, all right then. I think we can.
Look, I hate government, intruding into health care. I think it's wrong. I just want to keep my Medicare.
Government hands off.
Right. So, you're going to take that away? Well, not yet. Right now we're talking about Medicaid. But, don't forget, a huge proportion of Medicaid actually goes to covering your mom in nursing homes.
That's
so
true.
When you cut that, you are cutting out that over 65 who don't see how the government has anything to do with health insurance, even though their parents, or maybe they themselves, are in nursing homes thanks to Medicaid. Otherwise, they'd be out on the street.
Yep.
Even worse, living with you.
Well, she's listening.
You don't want that. So pay your bills.
Oh, okay. Yes. Okay. I will do that. I mean, I should pay my bills anyway.
The royal you.
Oh, all right.
But this whole idea about personal responsibility, what are they talking about? What they're talking about is, look, if Medicaid doesn't pay for nursing homes, it's your personal responsibility to take care of your parents.
Yes, that's true.
So it's not my problem. I want something for something reasons. I'm not sure why, because socialism.
Right. Prosperity gospel if necessary.
If necessary.
Okay. Well, it all falls apart. And
anyway, so that's the whole picture, just trying to tie it up in terms of the philosophy of governance here. And the fact of the matter is, is it absolutely a done deal that this Senate bill is dead? No, not yet. Won't be true till Friday. But if they don't get something done by Friday, that is tomorrow. And we'll hear about it today in terms of whether they're making progress or not. I get that the White House is going to bribe people, and I get that they think it's going to work, and I get that because that's how they do everything. But I don't know that it's going to work. And I don't know that they're really going to be able to bridge that divide. If they do, there's no question that, as Greg Sargent has pointed out, if they do, then it's clear, crystal clear, that the Republican moderates have been lying about everything. If they go ahead and say, well, I hate this and it doesn't do what it's supposed to, and I have these reasons, and thanks for the money, yeah, I'm in. If they do that, it's just blatant lying and bribery.
Oh, well.
I just don't see it happening. Usually when that kind of stuff happens, it's over subtler things and you don't see it, played out in front of your nose.
Yeah. But
this is 2017.
Oh, well, yeah, anything could happen, certainly. We've seen worse in the past, and we've seen arms twisted in the past. But, like you said, comparison to other situations and other bills, it's usually been, it's always stuff around the margins, but it's rarely with something that says, this bill is totally upside down from what it should be doing and makes things considerably worse. But I'll
vote for it.
I'll vote for it because I'll take it because X, Y, Z. And if it's opioid money, that would just be
even worse. Jerry Moran.
Yeah. But I did see some information being discussed yesterday that would make it all the more ironic if it were opioid crisis funding that did the trick. Of course, just because I saw previous administration officials discussing yesterday. One of the closing acts or the of the Obama administration was an attempt to get huge amount of money passed to address the opioid crisis, and it was complete brick wall. They hit a brick wall with Republicans in the Senate who were just adamant about blocking any funding for the opioid crisis. And then a few months later flipped and now are saying, I'm willing to swallow a totally upside down so-called healthcare bill that's nothing but tax cuts for the rich that I just said was completely implausible in exchange for the opioid money that I refused to allow the president to include in the last budget last go-around because our conference chairman told us not to.
Mm-hmm.
Well, nothing new per se, but just interesting.
The Republican whisperers, the Robert Costas of the world, are not coming out with positive vibes about how all of this is going. And in fact, they're just coming out with more of those anecdotes about how Trump, is like in a different world from everybody else. He thinks things are going great and everybody else is really ticked off.
Yes. A lot of good gifts came out of the video of the meeting from the White House, by the way, of Republican senators like looking at one another, including Susan Collins. I saw in one of them just sort of shielding her face with her hand from what she thought was the other camera angle, I guess, and like giving the like wry smile and eye roll to whoever was next to her, like, can you believe this guy? And just lots of blank stares and blinks from Lisa Murkowski and other people's just eyes popping out when they heard the president say, no, there's no tax stuff in this. This is health care.
Right, exactly right. Anyway, that's my summary for today. So, wrap it up. There's the news. We'll see what happens. There's always going to be new news. That's what happens. And David will take you through the rest of the show. I'm talking with my friend David Waldman, Kagro in the Morning, whose show it is. And we'll see what happens. We'll see where this goes. There's plenty other non-health things to talk about if you wish, although I didn't concentrate on them. Let's give you some examples before I go. Just maybe there'll be topics of conversation that David would like to talk about.
Please do.
Well, for example.
And do it for an hour.
Here's a little one from Josh Marshall. A lot of journalists and journalistic organizations are, in my mind, exceeding expectations in standing up to President Trump. But as long as they're trying to shame Trump and his crew into press access, doing press conferences, not hiding in bushes, refusing to be on camera, there's a limit to effectiveness. I'm into that. I don't like this whole idea of shaming. I don't think it works. That puts the begging on reporters and creates a spectacle of dominance, which is precisely the aim. The only real way to grapple with handle a gangland-type White House is to make clear hiding acts in secrecy is cowardly, a sign of bad acts and un-American, and let the Trump crew live with the label, not fight or beg to get them to do something different. The problem is, this is way, way out of the comfort zone of the mainstream news media as currently configured.
True.
And that for all the bad reasons. But the visual spectacle of stiff-arming the news media, making them beg, complain, shame, demand, The White House act different when they have no power to compel them to is what the dominance theatrics are meant to achieve. It's not an easy situation because most of us have not had to grapple with a corrupt strongman type head of state. That's the reality. And so the point is, like, you have to adjust.
All right. Send me the link to that so I can let everybody read it.
I will.
Leisure.
And then a reminder from Richard W. Painter, who used to be like an ethics guy. Uh-huh. No press allowed tonight into the Hotel Emolumentum.
Okay. Was there? What was that?
That
fundraiser?
was the Trump fundraiser that was done at the Trump Hotel. That was leased from the government that Trump will make money on for the Trump campaign.
Yes, of course.
Which he is labeling as Hotel Emolumentum.
Yes, good.
Right,
Well
so that's
done.
a good one.
That's true. Yeah, the no camera thing. I am a little bit puzzled as to why they think. I guess the best answer is they just want to do something that's going to make the press say, "Come on," and just and say no to it. A lot of good solutions out there that they're not taking up, but lots of people are insisting that the press. Why aren't you just whipping out the iPhone and taking video? I assume you get chucked out for that, but that would make you kind of a hero. But
here's one that'll get Armando riled up.
Yeah.
And this is the Daily 202, which of course I learned this morning. I didn't know I'm in Connecticut. That's the area code for Washington. That's why it's the Daily 202.
That part is true.
Even sweeping the suburbs would not be enough for Democrats to win the House majority, says Third Way. Third Way says you have to go try to get Trump voters. You can't do it on your own.
Okay.
So I'll send you that. I'll just leave it there. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I'll just leave it there.
I think they should try very hard. They should go ahead. I willingly assign the job of trying to get Trump voters to Third Way. You guys do it.
Pew Research has America's global standing plummets under Donald Trump. Everybody in the world hates us except for Israel and Russia. They're the only two countries that like Trump.
Net positive in those two countries? What's the...
well, let's see what we have here. What did we have for Europe? It's really hard to read some of these things. Russia. This is the change in confidence after Trump replaced Obama. How much did your confidence go up?
And it's positive
or down?
In Israel?
And Israel and Russia are the only positive places.
That's pretty amazing. I mean, whatever.
So I just gave you that link there, too.
That's surprising.
And this one is from Brian Klass. America First is becoming America Alone.
Okay.
And while we're doing this, Nikki Haley is talking about cutting peacekeeping troops to the UN as a win for the U.S. because we're saving money.
Right. And peace is expensive, I guess.
Nikki Haley says American foreign policy is now totally unpredictable, and that's a good thing.
Ooh,
and Jay Bookman says it's actually quite predictable. Think of the dumbest thing to say or do, and then do it.
That is true. One of those things that makes unpredictability great for American foreign policy if you are the UN ambassador is it reminds me of a lot of talking to my teenager about studying for quizzes or tests or something. Well, I don't know what they're going to ask, so there's no way I can study.
Right, exactly.
You've got to prepare for anything, and that way, no matter what they throw. No. The real answer is whatever it is that means I don't have to study. And if foreign policy is unpredictable, well, there's no point in getting up to speed on it. I'll just read the cards they give me. Easy job.
Right. Anyway, I got to run, but that's the story. Maybe that'll give you some stuff to talk about, and maybe not. But you still got an hour to go, so sorry.
All right, I'll come up with something.
And I'll talk to you on Monday.
All right, very good. Have a good weekend. Oh, yeah, it's the holiday weekend come Monday. Tell me we'll talk about what your plans are, and I'll make up some plans and tell you what they are later.
Okay, that sounds good. Take care.
People are taking both days. We'll consider.
Hey.
All right.
Alrighty.
That'll drive you crazy.
Take care. Bye.
Have a good weekend. I have to figure out what to do. Let's see. Monday, I know everybody will be home. And we'll have to figure out whether that's whether I can just go ahead and do a show. I mean, it's not July 4th yet. And by the way, July 4th for me in our household, I don't know. That might have to end up being a recorded day. So maybe it means good day for a live show on Monday. so that we don't leave you for too long. Tuesday, we're shipping out our older Scout for high adventure once again, but that also means that early departure time. I think they're meeting for their departure locally at 4:30 in the morning. Did I mention this? And although that leaves me a lot of time to get back and ready for the show, I don't know whether we're going to be just discombobulated here or what. But I don't know. We'll have to figure out what we're going to do. I mean, it's not impossible, obviously, to do the show. And I try. You'll enjoy this, Greg. I actually try to make sure that we do our. If we're going to end up having to take a day off, I dislike doing it on a day where Greg or Joan are offering to come by. Because, for a number of reasons. One, it makes the show that much more interesting. Two, it makes the show that much easier to do, too, and more enjoyable for me. And, it feels like I'm robbing them of an opportunity for some therapeutic venting to discuss all these things with all of you, too. And I hate to do that. All right. Let's see. Other things that, I wanted to follow up with Greg's, stories on, include Nikki Haley. She was very surprising yesterday. I mean, it was obviously a little bit weird, and I did see a lot of people following up saying all the things that I thought ought to be said when she was talking about it. Like, you're proud of that? That's actually a bad thing, to cut peacekeeping money. It seems to me like, I suppose if you ask around, the UN isn't super popular, certainly among Trump voters and near relatives of the Trump voter on the scientific family tree, if you will. UN's not super popular, but I mean, I guess if you ask them, is there one thing that the UN ought to do or that they do provide that you think is worthwhile? I suppose one of the things that stands the best chance of getting a positive review is peacekeeping. Although it's probably a close second to, they should bring back those UNICEF boxes at Halloween time. I don't know. But the idea of being seen as the UN ambassador, getting all excited about reducing the Americans' contribution towards peacekeeping doesn't really put the right face on it as far as I'm concerned, but somehow she's talked herself into it. But the other issue that was brought up, and I guess, was she in a hearing of some kind of sounds like maybe it was, the setting was a routine oversight hearing of some kind. I should open up I was going to open up Google News and have a look, but they redesigned Google News, and it's really super annoying because I haven't gotten used to it yet. Anytime they change the user interface, the first reaction is, this sucks, I can't find anything. And then you get used to the new one, and then when they change it again, you say the same thing. But let's see. I want to find a story about Nikki Haley, and what was she doing? Look, it's in Time Magazine, and I think it's real, the story in Time Magazine. Where were we? Let's see, there were a couple of stories about Nikki Haley, including, by the way, Crew filing an ethics complaint, a Hatch Act complaint against her because she tweeted as another Trump administration official had just been admonished for doing political support for a South Carolina pol at some point, and she, I guess, hasn't gotten the memo. Although part of the reason that they didn't punish the last Hatch Act violation was because everyone was supposed to get training in this stuff, but maybe they were just training the guy who did it wrong. But Nikki Haley, I guess, now getting the memo. Yeah, you're not really supposed to use your official government time and communications channels for political support like that. You got to kind of do it outside or with another account. It's convoluted. It's a little bit annoying. It doesn't, it's the sort of thing that they can point to and say, this makes no common sense, but it is what it is, and you got to comply with it so long as it's on the books. And your guy has the opportunity to change that law. He hasn't lifted a finger to try to do it, but his fingers are not hard to lift, by the way. So I'm not really certain what's barring him from doing this. Here's the Time Magazine bit that will maybe tell us a little bit about what was the setting in which she was bragging about cutting the peacekeeping budget. The Time Magazine, Nikki Haley praises cuts to the UN peacekeeping budget, sparking online something that a pop-up is now blocking. Online backlash. So where was she? Let's see. U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, has sparked online furor, although this furor has an E on the end. I don't know if that's, is that sort of the international edition spelling of furor now? They don't, furore, I don't know. I think it's just a typo. Over a tweet praising cuts made by the Trump administration to the organization's peacekeeping budget. Haley tweeted Wednesday, just 5 months into our time here, we've cut over $500 million, then $3 signs. That's Twitter. You can reduce it to one. $500 million from the UN peacekeeping budget, and we're only getting started. What a fantastic kickoff to that. In a subcommittee hearing Tuesday, there we go, Haley said that the U.S. is aiming to cut the country's contribution to the peacekeeping budget to 25% of total costs from its current level of 28.5%. The country's contribution, I guess our contribution to the peacekeeping budget, we want it down. Oh, okay. So I guess 28.5% of our contribution to the UN is for peacekeeping, and we want to get it to 25. It doesn't sound like a super important goal, but okay. I have seen value in the UN, the ambassador said. That's a nice thing to say. And at the same time, the UN has fat around the edges. Uh-oh, be careful. The Associated Press reports that the U.S. currently pays 22% of the UN's operating budget, and that the Trump administration's proposed budget seeks to cut contributions to the international organization, including the UN, by 31%. A lot of percentages being tossed around here. The tweet garnered a wave of responses from users on social media, with some criticizing Haley's tone as appearing congratulatory of the budget cuts. Here's Green Football's Charles Johnson, as opposed to Rage Furby Charles Johnson, saying, yeah, who needs peacekeeping anyway? Only liberal snowflakes care about preventing genocides and atrocities and human rights violations. This boast from Nikki Haley is one of the more insane and disturbing things I've seen from the Trump gang yet. Other similar reactions being tweeted around. Here's Eric Clefield saying, she's saying this, massive budget cuts to the people who guard against human atrocities like it's a good thing. All right. Well, at least we now know the setting in which she offered it, because I wanted to bring up that there was also mentioned, and I'll have to see if I can find well, you know what? I know I tweeted about it yesterday, so we could use that as a sort of a tracer back to the source of the comments. And she had also, I guess, been questioned about the prospect of moving the UN ambassador's residence. Now, this is, I guess there's an awful lot of work that goes on at the United Nations. I would think that would be a full-time occupation, being UN ambassador. And so Nikki Haley has had to relocate from South Carolina to New York. That's where her job is. I guess I never really gave much thought to the fact that there's a UN ambassador's residence at all. Because really, honestly, I mean, I don't know. If you're in private employment, sometimes they'll pay for you to relocate. Sometimes they'll even buy the house for you if you're like a big muckety muck. But I don't know. I find the prospect of paying for a UN ambassador to have a residence, an official residence in New York, as opposed to saying, move to New York. Your job requires it. Get yourself a house. I don't know. But they're, I guess, big enough muckety mucks. Being a UN ambassador is a big deal. Okay, so fine. We're going to have an official residence, and it's probably not all that expensive necessarily. Anyway, apparently the issue came up, and I guess I'm having to quote The Hill again here. But the prospect came up of moving the UN ambassador's residence to Trump Tower. And I guess people got the idea. This, I guess, was during the House Foreign Affairs Committee hearing. I guess she swung by the Hill and did two hearings. It sounds like one was for the Senate subcommittee. Is that right? Was she on the Senate side when she was talking about the peacekeeping money? And on the House side, when she was speaking about the residents. U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley promised Wednesday the ambassador's residence will not move to Trump Tower. No, I am not moving to the Trump Tower, Haley said during a House Foreign Affairs Committee hearing. Haley was responding to a question from Representative Norma Torres of California, a Democrat, who expressed concern about the possibility of spending taxpayer money at the flagship building of the Trump Organization. The New York City residence of the U.S. ambassador to the UN used to be, did you know this, at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel until a Chinese company bought it in 2015. That's very interesting that we were concerned enough to say, well, apparently the reason is the Chinese bought the Waldorf Astoria Hotel and we were worried that they might bug the residents and conduct some sort of surveillance and espionage there, and I guess it's a legitimate concern. So they moved the residence. Where did they move it to? I don't know. The residence is now at another hotel closer to UN headquarters. That's all it says. I'm not sure where it is. It's probably wise that they not just blurt out where it is, but okay. I mean, I was living a little high on the hog there, Waldorf Astoria, so they might have moved it for that reason, but I'm sure it was done back in the day when blah, 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 something, government was conducted by wealthy WASP people, and the Waldorf Astoria was the place to go. Now, it's nice to have a nice residence for them, I'm sure, although there's plenty of meeting space. If you want to meet with the UN ambassador from the United States, there's probably rooms at the UN where you could do it. But if you want them to have it at the residence, fine. So it's at the Waldorf Astoria. It's apparently can't be the Motel 6. No chance of doing it Country Inn and Suites. So fine. Waldorf Astoria. Anyway, they moved that, and now it's in another hotel. Now, this was what I was interested in, and it is right here in this article. It says at Wednesday's hearing, Haley confirmed that the move from the Waldorf Astoria was because of concerns about Chinese spying. Torres said she was glad the residents moved for the security of the ambassador and other U.S. personnel, but I would also like to get further clarity from you regarding the future of the residence since Trump Tower is only a mile away, she continued. I want to ensure that you're not thinking of moving and spending taxpayer dollars at the Trump Tower. Haley responded by saying that although she did not choose the current residence, she has no plan to move. I didn't pick this location, but I'll stay in this location until it's time for me to leave, she said. That's the correct answer, I guess. Democrats have repeatedly expressed concern that President Trump has not distanced himself enough from his businesses and continues to profit from them. Concerns about using taxpayer dollars at Trump Tower, like the Secret Service is doing, although they did structure their deal interestingly. I don't know if we ever discussed that. But the concerns about spending taxpayer dollars at Trump Tower previously arose when the Pentagon leased a privately owned apartment in the building so that the nuclear football, among other support, could be near the president if he is there. And he has not been there since, by the way. The Pentagon has said the lease negotiations were only with the apartment's owner, and the department is not aware of any means by which the president would personally benefit from the lease. That's what I was thinking of, not the Secret Service. I don't know whether the Secret Service similarly structured its deal. I think they had to take a whole floor, so they are paying the president's businesses for that. But yeah, okay, so the Pentagon's space in Trump Tower, I think they structured it wisely. Someone had already bought that space. They already own it. They bought it from Donald Trump, and so this other third party, who may or may not be a great friend of Donald Trump's, I suppose that's always a possibility. It might be Joey No Socks' apartment, or Stewie Rah-Rah's apartment, or for that matter, by the way, I mean, can I bring this up now? Would this be a good time to remind everybody? We just moved the UN ambassador's residence out of the Waldorf Astoria because we were concerned because the building was owned by the Chinese. 90% of the building, Trump Tower, is owned by Russian mobsters, but that's a good place to put the nuclear football? Maybe that's not such a good idea. They have to put it there, I guess, they think, because the president could go there. Not that he ever has. But could we keep the nuclear, how about, I mean, this would be more expensive, I know. But could we keep the nuclear football in a different location in New York City until the president gets there, and then say, fine, if you're going to spend time in Trump Tower, we'll move the football there so you don't have to take a taxi or, God forbid, an Uber from one part of New York City to another. You know, time is of the essence when it comes to, oh my God, I need the nuclear football. I'll admit that. But maybe it's not such a great idea. I mean, didn't we find out recently that the floor beneath the president's residence, say that 10 times fast, the president's residence, actually that's probably not so hard, was occupied by Russian mobsters who were arrested for running a gambling ring. The whole place is rife with Russian mobsters. The idea of keeping the nuclear football there is probably the dumbest idea ever. But what are you going to do? The president lives among Russian mobsters. I mean, that's the reality we'll have to confront more so than just the football. But that's a byproduct of his choosing to live with mobsters. All right. Well, so far he hasn't chosen to go back there. So I suppose that's a positive on that front. Oh, Bill Kristol tweeting this morning that President Donald Trump, you are a pig. Sincerely, Bill Kristol. So that's nice. That's unambiguous. I'm glad that's out there. I mean, Bill Kristol, you're a pig too, but thanks for saying so. Takes one to know one, I guess, and we'll leave it at that. But I'm not done with Nikki Haley because, well, really, I'm not done with, who was it? Norma Torres. I need to address the people on the House, Foreign Relations Committee, or foreign, what do they call it? These Foreign Affairs Committee. It used to be called the International Relations Committee. First it was Foreign Affairs, then they changed it to International Relations. It's now back to Foreign Affairs. That's a funny little twist, though. I can't remember whether the change from Foreign Affairs Committee to International Relations Committee was a Gingrich Revolution era change that Democrats changed back when they took the House back, but I think the Democrats might have left it as international affairs when they regained control of the House, and then Republicans, I think, changed it back to foreign affairs when they retook control of the House, perhaps thinking that it was Democrats who, in a fit of political correctness, had switched it to international affairs. I'm not 100% positive that wasn't the case, but it would make for a funny story if it were the other way. So let's stick with that. Anyway, like I said, I'm not done with these guys. Folks on the Foreign Affairs Committee, I need you to listen up. There is a Trump building right at UN Plaza. Kellyanne Conway has a home there. The Trump World Tower is right at UN Plaza. And as long as you're asking the question, you might as well put it on record that you know about this thing. But now that you do, now that I've told you about it, don't be so concerned about moving the UN ambassador's residence a mile away to Trump Tower. Be concerned about moving it even closer to the UN in Trump World Tower. Maybe that's not structured the same way. Maybe it's not something that you can pay directly to the Trump organization anymore. You would have to lease it from a private owner. But plenty of UN ambassadors and delegations do occupy space there. I believe for a long time, the Saudi mission to the UN occupied an entire floor there. What a coincidence, one might say. So I guess that's the next question to Nikki Haley. If it's up to you to move the residence, will you tell us, please, also that you're not going to move it to any Trump property at all? Thank you. Can we get that on the record? Anyway, that's out there. Just wanted to let people know about that one and make sure that, whatever, we're aware of these things. Let's see. Random news for the day, since we started out a little bit on gun issues. Let me bring this up. New Hampshire having a difficult time with their Sig Sauer gun range. I remember reporting to you a couple of days ago that for the second time since I've been tracking gun fail, a student had been accidentally shot at the Sig Sauer Academy. Sig Sauer, a big manufacturer of firearms, and they have their own facility. And just like at the NRA's own shooting range where someone was accidentally shot fairly recently, same thing happened at Sig Sauer. And this was the second time since starting tracking gun fail that I had seen a gun fail at the Sig Sauer Academy. It's closed now. This news in the Union Leader and Dateline Epping, which is where the academy is. Sig Sauer Academy's firing ranges facing Route 101, at least some of the ranges. I don't know whether that's the only couple ranges they've got or whether they have several facing different directions. But the ones facing Route 101 have been shut down after a state police investigation found that bullets were falling onto the highway. How could that possibly be? backstops, etc., etc. State police announced the range closure Monday following an investigation that began in April. This is how long these things take. When Kristen Burke of Hampton reported that a bullet had struck her windshield while she was traveling westbound between exits 7 and 8. Watch out between exits 7 and 8. According to the state police, detectives concluded that the round that hit Burke's car likely came from Sig Sauer, which is located just north of the area where it was struck. State police said that while the investigation revealed that rounds being fired from the ranges at Sig Sauer were falling onto Route 101, they determined that the bullet that shattered Burke's windshield wasn't fired from a pistol at the time that she was passing through the area. The results of the investigation have forced Sig Sauer to shut down the firing ranges facing Route 101 until a proper round retention system is installed, state police said. That's kind of a confusing situation here. The idea that they determined that the bullet that shattered her windshield wasn't fired from a pistol at the time that she was passing through the area. When was it fired? I actually just kind of sort of came up with a possible explanation. If they would say they're falling onto the roadway, that could easily just be that there was a bullet lying on the road and another car or truck kicked it up and then she ran into it with and she just drove into it as it was flying through the air and happened to be at windshield height. It wasn't that it had just been fired out of a handgun or anything else at the range. Interesting. Still, regardless of whether they're flying at the time or not, if they're landing on the roadway, you certainly have the potential of just shooting a passing car. Shortly after that incident, Burke told the New Hampshire Union leader that she thought first that a rock had struck her windshield while she was driving her Honda Pilot with her 2 young children inside. It wasn't until she brought the vehicle to a repair shop that a bullet was found inside the car. She said, "Right away I thought, if that hit me and we got into an accident, it would have been horrible. The first thought is your kids. That's where your mind goes," Burke said at the time. A Sig Sauer representative said Monday that she wasn't aware that state police had released information on the investigation and the closure of the firing ranges. In the days following the incident, Sig Sauer issued a statement in April defending its facility. The Sig Sauer Academy takes safety very seriously. We are confident that the findings of the New Hampshire State Police investigation will reassure everyone that our facilities present no danger to the public, the statement said. Other than bullets landing on Route 101, I'm sure there's just no problem at all. Anyway, just updating you on what's going on at Sig Sauer Academy in case that was super important to you. It's a follow-up. It's a thing for us. All right, let's see. Other things that we might want to bring up and discuss today. Let's see. Lots of things that I could save for taped shows later. Let's scroll down here and see what there may be that we can address in the next couple of minutes or two. Let's see. There's lots of different directions to go here. Including, you know what? There's some real interesting additional stuff on gutter as well. All right. Here, let's skip down a little bit further and update some of these stories. This is an interesting one. I was not expecting this twist on the story. David Farenthold did not make as big a splash as the fake Time magazine cover with this story, but a good one nonetheless from a few days before. Let's see. Datelined June 23rd, Washington Post. The banquet business was booming at Mar-a-Lago. Then Trump became president. And I thought this was booming. And now it's really hugely, bigly booming. And it turns out not to be the case. By the way, picture accompanying the piece here, I think a view of the rear of Mar-a-Lago, which includes a pool area and a putting green. And I don't know how long this has been the case, but the little flags on the putting green indicating where the holes are, it are now American flags because he's the ruler of America now. There you go. America is his personal property by virtue of his having been elected president of the United States. That's the way it works in Saudi Arabia, so it must be the way it works here. Farenthold and Drew Harwell writing this piece. For 8 straight years, the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society held its Palm Beach fundraiser gala at Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago club, but then Trump became president. And at this year's gala, his security put a damper on the silent auction. We allow for a cocktail hour, an hour and a half, really. Technically speaking, cocktail hour and a half during the silent auction. And we want people to have time to have a couple glasses of wine, obviously, and try to raise the bids. Get drunk and bid too much, obviously. That's what they're saying. But that's okay. It's for charity. That's according to Peter Brock, a real estate developer who is chairman of the charity's board. But this year, as guests waited on security checks at the club that also serves as the president's part-time home, many arrived with just 20 minutes to drink and bid. That's terrible. That's outrageous. People didn't have the appropriate amount of time, Brock said. So next year, the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society will move its gala to, I don't know how do you say it? I say gala sometimes. Sometimes people say gala. I'm going to use both. To a rival Palm Beach, Florida venue, the Breakers Resort, which is a fantastic place if you're still looking for a place. You need to have your fundraiser or event in Palm Beach, and Mar-a-Lago is out for political reasons or they don't let you drink for long enough. The Breakers is a good... I don't own any piece of the Breakers. I wish. Trump needs to buy a piece. The Trump presidency has, by some measures, been good for the Trump organization. Lots of measures, I think. Foreign governments, especially... also special interest groups and tourists have flocked to the Trump International Hotel in Washington since his election. Mar-a-Lago doubled its initiation fee from $200,000 or to $200,000 after the election. Recent financial disclosures seem to show that Mar-a-Lago's overall revenue and profits are climbing, but a Washington Post review reveals an unforeseen trend emerging in Trump's business during his presidency. He is losing banquet customers from his cherished Mar-a-Lago club. I don't know how big a piece of the business that is, but it sounds significant. In recent weeks, 7 nonprofit organizations, all repeat customers of the President's Club, have announced their decisions to avoid Mar-a-Lago next winter during the social season when Palm Beach life revolves around lavish parties for charity. The departing charities gave a variety of reasons for leaving Mar-a-Lago, but in interviews with charity officials, it was clear that each organization faced unexpected ripple effects from doing business with a company owned by the President of the United States at a venue that sometimes doubles as his house. It was not a decision based on politics, Brock said. The decision was based on the disruption on getting into Mar-a-Lago because of all the security and hassle. Sounds legit. Officials from the Trump organizations didn't respond to requests for this story. Because of that lost business, Trump's club is facing what could be its slowest season for charity rentals in 9 years. According to the Post's analysis, the cost could be hundreds of thousands of dollars in lost revenue, although Trump's business could make up for that by admitting new members, and they will. That decline in banquet revenue echoes reports from 2 other Trump properties, both in New York City, the Trump Soho Hotel, built by mobsters, and a golf course in the Bronx, both of which reported dips in conference business, and dips as their owners as well. Mar-a-Lago is one of the jewels of Trump's business empire, a Palm Beach mega mansion that he turned into a social club, generating multiple streams of revenue at once. There's the $200,000 initiation fee and annual dues. The Thursday night prime rib buffet is so cheesy. $55, according to a recent brochure sent to members. Croquet lessons at $70 an hour. $60 if you'll settle for the assistant croquet pro, of which there should be 0. There are guest rooms as well as weddings in the 2 ballrooms, but charity events are also a key part of the club's identity in a financial sense and a social one. If a charity holds a luncheon at Trump's club, the club can take in $40,000 or more, according to charity tax filings. For nighttime galas, we'll say this time, the tentpole events of a Palm Beach winter, the club can take in $250,000 or more. In recent years, those events appear to have boosted the share of the club's revenue, the club's income that comes from food and beverages. Income from those items accounted for nearly half of Mar-a-Lago's $21 million in total income in the 2015-2016 social season, according to internal documents the Trump organization recently provided to Palm Beach County as part of a lawsuit. It's the only way you can get this stuff, and first reported by the Palm Beach Post. In a social sense, charity events make Mar-a-Lago and Trump himself the center of Palm Beach life for a night. Trump loved to play that role, Palm Beach veterans say, describing how he table hopped, gave toasts, and posed for photos with anyone wanting one. People used to gawk at Trump and his wife Melania and very often approach him with a tap on his shoulder as he was about to bite into that filet mignon, not chicken, at Mar-a-Lago. And he or they would get up and take a photo op or selfie with whomever, then smile and bid good luck. James Borinak, chief executive of a Palm Beach art gallery and veteran of the charity scene, said in an email, "Why not? He wanted the place booked," this guy writes. After the election, Trump gave up day-to-day management of Mar-a-Lago and his other businesses, but he continues to own them, drawing criticism from Democrats and ethics experts that he stands to use the power and prestige of his office to generate personal profit. And he has continued to visit. Of course, we know lots about that. He made 7 visits to Mar-a-Lago since he's taken office. He is, in effect, trying to make the club a business and what his staff have called a winter White House at the same time. And according to Trump, this has been lucrative time for the estate. Last week, Trump reported in federal financial disclosures that Mar-a-Lago took in $37.2 million in income between January 1st, 2016 and mid-April 2017, a 15-and-a-half-month period that covered the final year of the campaign, the transition, and about 3 months of the Trump presidency. I don't know that it's so super important that we parse through the rest of it, but suffice to say, some big names in charity events have moved over to the breakers, which was previously, as they put it here in the in this piece. Oh well, when they were talking to Trump in 2015, the breakers used to get the leftovers, as Trump put it. Not anymore, and now they're primarily going over to the breakers. Let's see. Besides the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, the Boston-based Dana-Farber Cancer Institute announced it would move its gala to the breakers. The cancer charity, which had held its ball at Mar-a-Lago for 7 straight years, had faced internal pressure from staff and patients who objected to Trump's proposed travel restrictions. There was a political reason to move that one as well. Mar-a-Lago also lost a gala hosted by the Bascom Palmer Eye Institute, part of the University of Miami's medical school. 3 years at Mar-a-Lago, now moving to the breakers. By the way, the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, that's not the same one that did the prostate cancer tennis tournament that they used to hold at Mar-a-Lago, and that he rebranded as the Donald Trump one. That, I think, was a different one. Okay, let's see. What else have we got here? Who moved? They also lost a dinner dance held by the Morse Life Health System, which supports senior care centers in Florida. No word on whether that's political or not. The Chamber Music Society of Palm Beach moving 6 concerts. They say they outgrew Mar-a-Lago and need, I guess, a bigger space. And American Humane, an animal welfare group, moved its Hero Dog Luncheon to the breakers after 3 years as well. Let's see. They also happen to tell how much each organization tends to pay for their events there. That's probably a little less important. Anybody else? 4 nonprofit organizations have not said whether they're coming back to Mar-a-Lago for galas next year. They include the Navy SEAL Foundation. I wonder if they'll find it hard to move. Gateway for Cancer Research, and American Friends of Magen David Adom, which supports Israel's equivalent of the Red Cross. The list also includes Curativity, the charity formerly known as the Eric Trump Foundation. What are they going to be doing? I don't know. I think they might stick around. It held a dinner at Mar-a-Lago in March, according to a videographer, John Koterba, who attended to shoot the event. That was the best source they could get on that. It's amazing. Let's see. Some good news for Trump's club, though. It attracted 1 new gala customer for the next year, the Preservation Foundation of Palm Beach. A major customer, the American Cancer Society, which this spring held its 10th straight gala at Mar-a-Lago, debated finding a new venue, but I guess they haven't come up with any decision. Let's see. Well, look at this. It says, after all, this year's event included security-related delays, and there was a kind of cognitive dissonance. While the American Cancer Society was putting money into Trump's business, its advocacy arm, the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network, was blasting Trump's proposed cuts to cancer research funding and his support for the House GOP's health care bill. Interesting. Woodward, not the Washington Post's Woodward, but in this case, the Brant Woodward, Regional Executive Vice President of the Cancer Society, declined to say how much his charity paid for the use of Trump's club. But they found few, if any, alternatives for its 280-person event. The venues on the island, he says, are very, very limited. Leaving the island? Not really an option, apparently. So, next year's gala will be at Mar-a-Lago, security lines and awkward politics notwithstanding. There you go. Anyway, I thought that was sort of an interesting story and not exactly what I expected to read out of that headline. A couple of other issues swirling around Donald Trump. It's all swirling around Donald Trump that require updating. Things that we can still get to in the limited amount of time left to us, but perhaps other longer reads we can discuss later. How about this one? Did you hear this news over the weekend? Reported by Politico, Nancy Cook and Josh Dawsey reporting on this. Trump loses patience with his White House counsel. The president has taken out his frustration with the expanding Russia probe on lawyer Don McGahn, one of Trump's earliest campaign supporters. Well, life's tough, Don. White House counsel Don McGahn has largely stepped back from managing Donald Trump's response to the expanding Russia investigation, because there's no way to manage it, really. But that hasn't stopped the president from lashing out at him about it anyway. Trump started the week by giving McGahn, a loyal supporter who was among the first Washington establishment figures to sign on with his presidential campaign, a dressing down in the Oval Office for not doing more to quash the Russia probe early on, if that was even an option. The episode, recounted by 4 people familiar with the conversation, and there seems to be somebody familiar with the conversation all the time. It's leaks, I tell you. Came as part of a broader discussion on Monday about the president's frustrations with special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation into Russian interference within the 2016 election, which now includes the question of whether Trump himself tried to obstruct the investigation by firing FBI Director James Comey. I think this would only add to his worries if it's publicly known that he's angry with the White House counsel for not trying hard enough to obstruct it for him. The Russia portfolio has been handed off to Trump's longtime personal attorney, Mark Kasowitz, leaving McGahn to focus on the standard duties of a top White House lawyer, vetting political appointees, selecting judges for vacancies in lower courts, and giving legal advice on potential legislation and other White House policy decisions. That's helpful to point out. It's really basically unethical and illegal for the White House counsel to be spending his time on helping the president dodge personal problems like this. Trump's willingness to lay into him for the escalation of the probe, largely the result of Trump's own decision to dismiss Comey, illustrates McGahn's falling stock in the West Wing, as well as Trump's desire to find someone to blame for his legal predicament. He really should be blaming himself, but that's never going to happen. This is one of the misconceptions about the White House counsel's office. Don represents the institution. What is going on with Russia and Mueller are matters involving Trump in his personal capacity, said one informal but frequent advisor to the White House. I am not sure the president completely understands how those roles are segregated. Neither the White House press office nor McGahn responded to requests for comment. Veterans of Washington scandal said there's often an adjustment when personal lawyers come in alongside attorneys working in an institutional capacity. As far as Don goes, I don't think his role has significantly changed, said Randy Evans, partner at the law firm Denton's, friend to McGahn, and former outside counsel to then Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. There is a natural transition period when you're figuring out where the turf lines are, and there can be a little bit of overlap. But the president's outburst at McGahn speaks to one of the most difficult aspects of working in the Trump White House, period, I'll add. No top aide is immune from the president's anger or being called out in front of colleagues, even longtime loyalists like McGahn, who signed on in the early days of the campaign before Trump won the New Hampshire primary. I don't think Ivanka gets called out. That's possible. They discussed how Chris Christie was publicly dumped. Jeff Sessions has infuriated the president as well. McGahn's fall from the president's good graces is particularly noteworthy because he occupies such a crucial role in the White House. He's one of the few senior members of the administration with Washington chops. As a former commissioner of the FEC, a longtime campaign lawyer, former attorney to House Republicans, he knows how to work the government's levers of power, even if that involves jamming them up. Critics of McGahn's tenure at FEC, the only other time he's worked within the federal government, Worried that at the outset of the administration, McGahn would only enable the president's worst instincts based on the way they believe McGahn acted in a partisan manner at the FEC and ground the agency to a halt. Trump first became irritated with McGahn after courts struck down the first executive order on the immigration and travel ban. Chief strategist Steve Bannon and senior advisor for policy Stephen Miller took the lead in writing that order, yet it still went through the White House counsel for a legal review. McGahn later issued a guidance that clarified parts of the first order to exempt legal permanent residents of the U.S., but that backpedaling could still not save the policy, up to that point anyway. Things may have changed now. The White House had put out a second order, which also had been challenged by a host of courts. One Trump advisor said the president has repeatedly complained in private about McGahn's handling of the travel ban appeal. He's not supposed to handle that, though. In several calls, Trump said he couldn't believe it was overturned over and over, and then began reading a part of the federal statute he said gave him the right to ban immigration after an aide showed it to him, because he knows nothing. Then he started reading that in public, this advisor said. Trump was similarly displeased when Sessions recused himself from the Russia investigations in early March, and in a closed-door meeting let McGahn know how unhappy he was. One person who keeps in touch with the president said that while Trump gets angry at almost everyone on his staff, his outbursts at McGahn have been more frequent. Unlike other staffers, this person said McGahn doesn't feel the need to always be near the president and often avoids the staff meetings where aides hover around for no good reason. Well, it's not for no good reason. It's to ingratiate themselves with a childish idiot. It's good for them. He has sometimes shown impatience with Trump's tendency to have senior aides in the Oval Office for meetings, whether they need to be there or not. McGahn contributed significantly to the president's most striking successes. He handpicked Neil Gorsuch to be Trump's Supreme Court nominee, personally shepherding him through the meetings on the Hill and a smooth confirmation process. He also heavily advised the administration on the legal strategy to roll back several Obama-era regulations during Trump's first few months. Now, he's busy selecting judges for lower court appointments, including that blogger bozo, I guess. I don't know if he's responsible for him. Efforts that could tilt the court system in conservatives' favor for years to come. Two other people who have spoken to Trump said the president's displeasure with his counsel speaks to his concern about whether he was getting good advice on the Russia investigation before Kasowitz came on board. Well, he wasn't, but I think Don has done as reasonable a job as anyone could to keep things in perspective and try to articulate to the president, I can't do the things you're suggesting, you just have to let the process unfold, said the informal frequent advisor about McGahn's role in the Russia probes. McGahn, as White House's top attorney, is meant to advise the administration on all legal matters from conflict of interest to national security to vetting top aides and political appointees. We've said this. Kasowitz is meant to solely protect the president's personal interests. The White House's decision to hand Kasowitz the Russia portfolio is very different from the way the Clinton White House handled the scandals it faced. While Trump's White House press shop has diverted all Russia-related calls to Kasowitz and Mark Corallo, a spokesman for Trump's legal defense, the Clinton White House set up its own internal crisis management shop, separate from the Daily Press staff, yet still part of the White House. Mark Fabiani took on this job starting in 1994 before shifting it over to Lanny Davis in 1996 to help with campaign finance and other crisis issues and to bridge the difference between the two White House operations. I was in the gap between the press, the political side, and the legal side, said Davis, who worked with the lawyers in the White House counsel's office. That's what's missing in the Trump White House, someone who fills that gap. We'll just finish up with this one, I guess, see if there's anything else to mine out of this. Davis went on to say that it made the most sense to him for McGahn to play that role in the Trump White House. He knows Washington. He knows politics. He's a great lawyer. That's Lonnie Davis for you. He's in the best position to be the bridge as a lawyer between the White House lawyers and the press operation. He's really not. It'd be a horrible job for him to take on as White House counsel. He could take it on if somebody else took the White House counsel job. One prominent white-collar attorney close to the Russia probe told Politico that McGahn knows this history, familiar to most people in the world of Washington crisis management. In the case of the Trump White House, Kasowitz has created a separate parallel legal office and has even met with administration aides without anyone from the White House counsel's office present. Friends and close associates of McGahn say that the addition of Kasowitz has been a relief to him and that he still spends lots of time in the Oval Office. I don't get the sense that the president has lost confidence in Don, said one source close to the White House. People just felt that he was spread too thin. I guess that's a plausible alternative explanation, too, but interesting and worth keeping an eye on. Let's see. Other things that we need to catch up on that are still relevant. Some of the things, of course, have sort of passed or faded in their relevance over the last couple of weeks or even days in some cases. Let's see. Other things that might perhaps require discussion. I don't know. It's a difficult vetting process. Some of these stories, it's difficult to bring. Oh, did we bring this one up? I don't know if we. I know I put this one aside, and I may have made some mention of it. But another, I think, important development. Does this one also come from the Hill? Yeah, majority. Oh yes. Now I can't recall whether we definitely made a mention of this or not. The majority of Trump real estate sold to anonymous buyers, according to a recent analysis. The majority of real estate properties sold by President Trump's corporation since he clinched the Republican nomination for president have been purchased by, you'll never believe it, shell companies, LLCs. A new investigation has found. USA Today spent 6 months analyzing the transaction of every real estate property that Trump and his companies own and found that 70% of the purchasers were shell companies, which allow people to buy property without revealing the buyer's name. Did we definitely mention this? I can't recall. If not, I want to get it on record. Another piece of the puzzle. Only 4% of the buyers used shell companies in the 2 years before. In other words, before he was clearly going to become a political player to be reckoned with, before he got the nomination, 4% of buyers of properties from the Trump organization were anonymous, buying through shell companies. Now, 70%. That's a pretty large jump and probably worth raising an eyebrow over if your forehead's not sunburned like mine. Trump's businesses have sold $33 million in properties since Election Day last November, including 28 properties spanning New York, Las Vegas, Los Angeles, etc., according to the report. Profits from the sale of the properties go into a trust that's managed by Trump's sons, but which Trump is the sole beneficiary of and can withdraw money from at his pleasure. I do think we mentioned at least that part. The newspaper and public records attempt to identify the buyers behind some of the transactions, which include a conservative blogger in Canada, a French-owned investment firm, and a Bangladeshi author. The report comes as Trump was slapped with a lawsuit from the attorneys general of Washington, D.C., Maryland on Monday. That would have been a couple of weeks ago, but I think we mentioned that one, alleging the president has violated the emoluments clause of the Constitution, barring elected officials from receiving personal gifts and payments. You should probably click through to see if the USA Today article names the Canadian blogger. I know that there's a fairly a new rising star of the alt-right blogging world who's Canadian, and whose name keeps cropping up, and I'm wondering if we'll get a match on that one. I got to make a quick scan of the USA Today piece to see if that name pops up anywhere. So the existence, the use of LLCs isn't a perfect shield. In many cases, it just takes a little bit of research to find out the name of the LLC that did the buying, and then you can look at the incorporation documents of that LLC if you know what state it's incorporated in. And it's not always instantaneously available, and it takes a little while to track it down, but eventually you can find out who incorporated it and who the partners are. Sometimes, if they really want to add another layer of obfuscation to it, your LLC can be made up of other LLCs as the partners, and then you got to go and look up each one of those things. Oh, well, okay, so it's a different Canadian blogger I'm thinking of. This person is Brian Lovig of Kelowna, Kelowna, British Columbia, a conservative blogger behind 2L Nevada LLC. Now, he says he has nothing to hide. It's an investment, and his family uses an LLC on the advice of their trust's manager. He said he didn't think any buyer could influence the president via real estate purchases. I doubt very much whether they can't, because Trump loves money more than anything else. But there are legitimate reasons, of course, to use LLCs when you're buying investment properties. It's just the fact is that it makes it very difficult sometimes to figure out exactly who owns the damn thing. And if it's a bunch of Russian mobsters, it's something you're going to want to find out about if you're worried about corrupting the president. And it's usually not just one unit that they're buying if they're looking to do that. All right. Let's see. Other items of interest. Let's see. Going way back. Anything we can pull out of the hat from way, way back? Certainly plenty, but no particular obvious route on that one. So scrolling back up to the top, let's see. Here's an interesting twist. Let's just close out with this one. Yes, Rebecca Roman says we definitely did cover that story previously. It may have been that piece. I usually try to eliminate them and archive things from Inside Pocket once I've done that so that doesn't happen again. But I want to reiterate that story. I think that's actually pretty important in all of this. But jumping to another angle of Trump world, and maybe we're just too caught up in there. I thought this was an interesting one. Think Progress put this out just the other day. I hadn't noticed this, and I think it's important in terms of just sort of tracking all of the strains of the social strata in Trump world and who's getting their information where. Judd Legum, writing for Think Progress, the inside story of how TMZ quietly became America's most potent pro-Trump media outlet. I haven't seen that because I'm not a huge fan of TMZ, though I've watched the TV program from time to time. It kind of I've seen it like sort of late night on TV flipping by, and I've always found it's a paparazzi show, so it's not usually my kind of thing, in that I rarely know who are the celebrities that they're interviewing, but they're pretty irreverent and forward in their questioning, and it sometimes makes for engaging viewing, especially the scenes in the newsroom where the various paparazzi are discussing their the people that they found and interviewed. It can be sometimes engaging. And then I found prior to the election, and going back a couple of years, TMZ was actually one of the more interesting outlets in terms of, like, they were one of the few, I guess you have to call them news outlets. They used their paparazziing, if that's a word, skills to stake out a couple of the supposedly secret Koch brothers convocations where they brought aspiring, presidential candidates and other high-ranking officials in from all over the country for secret meetings to talk about the conservative agenda and to sort of audition them for the question of whether or not they would fund them in their ambitions. And the news media found it very difficult. The traditional news media found it very difficult to cover the thing. They staked the thing out. And I was pleasantly surprised that they were using their stakeout and long-range photography abilities to get themselves familiar with the faces of the politicians and then reporting where other outlets were unable to do so. So this comes as something of a surprise that they would set themselves up as pro-Trump, but then again, maybe not. They're all about the entertainment value and the clicks and getting the dollars, but it's an interesting inroads into perhaps a slightly younger set of potentially persuadable potential Trump supporters, or maybe people who already are. After the release of the infamous Access Hollywood video where Trump was caught bragging about sexual assault, Trump struggled to generate positive coverage, but one notable exception to all this was TMZ. The site, best known for celebrity gossip and interviews, landed an exclusive from former Miss Teen USA, Katie Blair. This was their follow-up to that story. In an edited 2.5-minute video shot from the front seat of a car, I'm really fascinated by how many people do videos in their cars these days. And I guess there's a reason they have the dash-mounted cameras for, covering themselves in insurance situations, and you can just turn them around. But you shouldn't be doing that while driving. Maybe they're not even driving, but still, just take the camera out and go home and make a set. I don't know why people do things in the car. But anyway, Blair says that she, quote, never had a bad experience with him, Trump, and has a great deal of respect for him. Certain that there are such people, but anyway. Blair went on to describe, in the words of TMZ, why Trump couldn't have done many of the things some other pageant contestants have accused him of doing. She concluded the video by saying she would vote for Trump. Whatever. Trump's accusers, on the other hand, got harsher treatment. TMZ highlighted how one woman, Jessica Drake, quote, might have pulled off the ultimate publicity stunt, announcing an online sex shop one day before accusing the Donald. That story wasn't exactly true. Drake's lawyer later made it clear in an email to TMZ, but it still served as an effective vehicle to discredit her as a sexual deviant and profiteer. Another exclusive on TMZ reported that Bill Clinton made trashy, disparaging remarks about women during golf games with Trump. According to the report, Trump was considering bringing this up in the next presidential debate. TMZ cited sources familiar with the situation. Trump didn't end up bringing up Clinton's alleged comments during the debate, but certainly the sort of thing he would have threatened, and the sort of thing that makes it titillating for TMZ, I guess. A former TMZ employee who spoke to Think Progress on the condition of anonymity was watching this unfold and praying for it to end. In the weeks leading up to the election, it was all Trump all the time. Can't blame him for that. Everybody was doing that. And it was gross. But after months of fawning Trump coverage that put the site's creator, Harvey Levin, at odds with its young, liberal Los Angeles area staff, many saw Election Day as the solution. In the back of my mind, the entire time, I was like, all right, come on, November, this will all be over. We won't have to think about this anymore. We can get back to normal business, the former TMZ staffer told Think Progress. Then the results came in. I felt like I had blood on my hands. The morning after the election, Levin, who sits on a raised platform in the center of an open newsroom, got a call. It was Trump. Levin went into his big sort of conference room right behind my desk, the former staffer told Think Progress. I don't really know what they were talking about, but I heard some laughter. Trump was the ideal vehicle for TMZ to break into political coverage, although I maintain that it predates this. A reality TV host and a creature of celebrity culture pursues the most powerful position in the world, all while dishing out TMZ-friendly sound bites on a daily basis. And I guess that's true. I don't know whether that's necessarily by design. Everything he says, like Mika Brzezinski's crazy and low IQ and bleeding from a facelift, is custom made for TMZ and gossip columnists. That's, he's always been attuned to that. As Trump has risen, TMZ has quietly emerged as arguably the most important, I don't know about that, pro-Trump outlet in America. Fox News is the largest and best known, but its audience is older and already inclined to support Trump. Breitbart is the most aggressive and strident, but its connection to white nationalism limits its appeal. TMZ attracts a large and diverse audience, precisely the folks Trump needs to reach to stitch together a winning coalition. Stories on TMZ not only gain a wide audience online, but also appear on two nationally syndicated daily television shows, TMZ and TMZ Live, that in most markets are aired multiple times each day. That's true. One person who understands the importance of TMZ is Donald Trump. In April 2016, TMZ interviewed Trump on the red carpet, where, I don't know, and asked him what TV shows he's watching. Only TMZ, only Harvey. That's all I want to watch, Trump said with a grin. Of course, it's not true, but he knew who was interviewing him. And just as when he's dealing with health care with actual senators, he just tells them what they want to hear. In the weeks after taking office, Trump did not grant many one-on-one interviews with reporters, but on March 7th, Harvey Levin met with Trump in the Oval Office for over an hour. Levin didn't conduct an interview, but was discussing future opportunities with Trump. Several current and former employees of TMZ describe a frequent communication between Trump, his closest associates, and the TMZ founder. To Harvey's credit, he's out in the open. He has a desk. He's right there. There's no secrets, the TMZ source said. In the lead up to the election, it would be pretty common to hear Levin's secretary say, Trump is calling you. Trump's relationship with Harvey, this just all goes to the fact that he's a non-serious person, but whatever. Trump's relationship with Harvey predated his political campaign. For years, Trump would appear on TMZ television shows to promote his business ventures or weigh in on the issues of the day. In 2012, for example, Trump called into TMZ Live to say that attorney Gloria Allred would be impressed with his penis. And that's what it says. And then it says, don't ask, and there's a link, but I think I need to ask. Levin was also heard speaking on the phone with Melania Trump. I'm distracted by the penis story. I'm sorry about that. I got to go over that. It's a Daily Beast story. Donald Trump said in 2012 Gloria Allred would be very, very impressed with his penis. Donald Trump has an ugly habit of talking about his manhood, but this is one of his ugliest incidents. And I guess we already knew about his discussion about it in the debates, the primary debates, by the time this article was written. Well, interesting. Okay, I'll leave that one to you to read since we're nearly out of time. At any rate, more than anyone, Levin spoke to Trump's longtime attorney, Michael Cohen. That's an interesting pairing. You got the sense that Harvey and Cohen were boys. They would laugh and laugh. I think Cohen's jokes only worked on Harvey, so that's why they got along. Cohen was also a regular guest on TMZ Live. How odd. That is very strange. Well, anyway, it's an interesting combination, those two, and I guess worth noting because it could definitely sort of continue to work under the radar. It would be very difficult, I would think, for political junkies like you and me to be able to catch on and take notice of the burgeoning relationship between Trump and TMZ. There's an awful lot more to it, but I think it's an important development and well spotted there by Think Progress, and raises the real possibility that I guess a continued stealth growth of the Trump base through channels that we consider to be like either less than legitimate or certainly less than serious. But I mean, supermarket tabloids have a huge audience, and for whatever reason, people continue to consume that news. And in the age where they're doing so much work to undermine real news as the fake news, I guess that leaves the supermarket tabloid world and TMZ untouched, and gives them an opportunity to reach out to people who are otherwise too busy with their own daily lives, but not too busy to be consumed by celebrity gossip. If they can get their political news that way without having to leave their comfort zone, that could be fairly dangerous, worth keeping an eye on. Anyway, it's Thursday at the end of our show. Thanks thanks to the guys at the After Show. We can catch up with all the news on their Thank God It's Jovedy version of the show. What do they got for you? The White House boasts all they have to do to pass Trump care is bribe moderate Republican senators with opioid money, or maybe just directly with opioids. The Supreme Court's take on the Muslim ban has already created a huge mess, and the paramilitary security firm hired to guard the Dakota pipeline may have been operating illegally. What? No way. I'll tell you about the last half after this.
From Daily Kos Radio on networksradio.com. You have been listening to the Kagro in the Morning Show
with David Waldman.
On the last half of today's After Show program, they report that a far-right group in Europe has purchased a ship to disrupt refugee rescue missions. Oh, that's going to be horrible. And extremists have fallen in love with Oklahoma City bomber Timothy McVeigh. How does this stuff happen? Find out next on the After Show with Wink and Justice. Next.